This year I want to talk about toiletries and cosmetics for Pesach. And there are many, many subtle differences among the authorities and among kashrus agencies as far as how to treat the household toiletries and cosmetics that we have in our home. And it's important to understand the basis for some of the differences of opinion that exist among the different agencies. The COR has, nice advertisement, has an excellent guide this year. Really did a wonderful job, really slick, really informative. And as you know, those of you who get my weekly email know that you can actually even download for your iPhone or your smartphone a list of cosmetics and a list of toiletries that are on an approved list that are considered kosher LePesach. The question is, do cosmetics and toiletries need to be kosher LePesach or not? On the one hand, you could argue that maybe the things that I do ingest have to be kosher LePesach. Okay, toothpaste, mouthwash, the things that may contain alcohol and the chametz, that's mela, that's one thing. But then, what about the things that I never put inside my mouth? Why should there be an issue there? Well, let's consider this very carefully. There is a prohibition of benefiting from chametz on Pesach. Not only are you not allowed to ingest it, to eat it, you're also not allowed to benefit from it, and you're not allowed to own chametz. So therefore, to take, let's say, if you wanted to, let's say you wanted to take, I don't know, you wanted to take real oatmeal that had been leavened at some point, and you wanted to use it as a, is it an exfoliant? Is that what they call? I mean, you wanted to get off dead skin with it, so you wanted to rub it on. That would be very problematic on Pesach. It might even be an Isser D'Oraisa, a Torah prohibition as well. So that's one issue that you have to very, very carefully consider. But when we're dealing with modern cosmetics and toiletries, for the most part, these things contain at the most chametz that is considered to be nifsal me'achila, that is no longer edible. And in most cases, it's nifsal me'achilas kelev, which is not even edible to a dog. Now, why there's a distinction that's made in the halachic authorities between nifsal me'achilas kelev and nifsal me'achilas adam, something technically which is a prohibited substance, which is no longer edible for human consumption, in most situations, the prohibition no longer exists. So when it comes to, let's say, when it comes to pig fat, for example, to lard, once lard is denatured to a point where a dog wouldn't eat it anymore, then there's no problem even if you were to ingest that material. Now, this is not a heter to go ahead and take denatured lard and to eat it, but there's an additional stringency that exists on Pesach. And that additional stringency is identified by the poskim when we talk about the laws of Pesach. And that is that the Ran in Masechet Pesachim says that even if something is no longer edible for a human being, whereas for other prohibitions it's considered to be completely permitted, on Pesach we require that the leaven has to be nifsal me'achilas kelev, it has to be no longer edible for a dog. And the reason why there's this added stringency is because there are two prohibitions in the Torah when it comes to chametz. One is that you're not allowed to consume edible leaven, and the other one is you're not allowed to consume a leavening agent, that is yeast. Now, yeast is not something that's normally edible, but yeast is something that can leaven other things. So the fact that the Torah prohibits yeast means that even if it's not normally an edible product, it's still prohibited. And once you get it to a chemical state where even a dog wouldn't go near it, so then it's completely permitted even for Pesach as well. So we have a lot of issues that we have to think about when we talk about this issue of items that are toiletries and cosmetics that may contain a grain derivative, something that was actually manufactured from grain, but was through a chemical process, was so denatured, was so rendered to be inedible that even a dog won't go near it. What are the other issues that may exist? So, for example, I have a mouthwash that may contain alcohol that came from a grain derivative. Can I use that alcohol? So technically the halacha is that once it's been denatured, even a dog can't consume it. Someone was just telling me that they work in a hospital and they see problems with alcoholics who drink antifreeze or windshield wiper fluid. And that contains denatured alcohol. Apparently, if you drink it, it'll drive your body crazy. It'll completely, I don't know, you can tell me what it'll do. It'll throw your whole system out of whack. And it may take you a long time to restabilize your different levels, blood levels and things like that. But people do it. But still, since a normal person wouldn't drink denatured alcohol, it's considered to be perfectly permitted on Pesach, even if the origin of that alcohol came from grain. Why then are we machmir? Why then are we stringent? So the COR has a nice explanation, but I want you to take a look. My colleague, my friend who I've known for many, many years, Rabbi David Heber, is a rabbi in Baltimore. And he also works for the Star K, the Varakashras in Baltimore. He put together a very nice summary of many of the concerns that exist. You can find it if you turn to the third page of this handout. And it's in source number 11. And he tells you as follows. Lehalacha, which means according to the letter of the law. We're going to study this with my Rashi, okay? I'm going to be the Rashi in commentary for what Rabbi Heber writes. All non-food items not fit for canine consumption, that is nifsal me'achilas kelev, something that one would not feed his dog, may be used on Pesach. This includes all cosmetics, soaps, ointments, and creams. Nonetheless, people have acted stringently with regard to these items. Below are several reasons why people are strict. So the first thing that you see, here's my Rashi commentary. The first thing that you see is that this is a chumrah. So that, first of all, number one, even if you were not to get rid of any of your cosmetics or toiletries, you'd still be observing the halachas of Pesach. Let's make sure that's very clear. Those who choose not to use a list at all and choose not to be machmir are observing the rules of Pesach. Now, with that being said, I would still recommend that you not use the same bottle of mouthwash, because there may have been some, they still call that backwash, there may have been some backwash from the last time you had a pizza. And also, I would get a different tube of toothpaste, because you never know, your toothpaste tube probably touched your toothbrush, which was used for the last time you had a chametz meal. But with all that being said, what are the reasons for being stringent to even toiletries that are just going to go on your body? You should make sure do not contain products that originated with grain. So he says, number one, many products, including shaving lotion and perfume, contain denatured alcohol which can be restored to regular alcohol. According to most opinions, one should not use such products on Pesach, and therefore there's a list. And COR also has a very similar list of those cosmetics and perfumes which have an alcohol base. And I was told the other day that most ethyl alcohol no longer has, in North America, no longer has a grain base, but is rather a grape base, because of the fact that it's cheaper to make ethyl alcohol today out of grapes than it is out of grain. I have not verified this information, but at the same time, that's why you have these lists that are circulating, where someone has actually verified from the manufacturing plant that the alcohol source, the source of what made this into alcohol, was not grain. Now, let's understand what this principle is. This is discussed in a number of poskim who say that even when something was denatured because a poison was added to the alcohol, if there's a process whereby you could separate the poison, the denaturing element, from the alcohol and extract the drinkable, consumable alcohol, then we judge it presently as an alcoholic beverage that's consumable. And therefore, you should not use denatured alcohol if it comes from grain. Understand that this is a chumrah. Okay, it's a chumrah, especially in today's world, where it's very, very difficult to renature denatured alcohol. It's extremely difficult, and it's unlikely that a person would be very successful in doing it. The fact that it's a chumrah doesn't mean that you should trivialize it. When all things are equal and you have the ability to get kosher lePesach or mouthwash that's on an approved list like you have here at the COR, where everything is at your disposal, and you have Sobeys just down the street, and you have shoppers, and you can find the exact facsimile of what you need, then why wouldn't you want to be machmir? And you put that as an aside for a moment, and that is that Pesach is a time when Jews are traditionally machmir in a number of different areas that they wouldn't normally be machmir in for the rest of the year. There's a virtue of that because chametz represents not only the idea of restricting oneself in the halachic issues of the observance of the holiday, but also there's a metaphysical component of trying to curb one's indulgence in the physical realm. That's one of the themes of Pesach. And therefore, if a person can be machmir, then there are many holy svarim that talk about the virtues and the benefits of those kinds of chumras. And you know this yourselves. You know that there are so many things that your mother or your bubby did which you know can't possibly be in the realm of halacha, and yet we do them anyway because for centuries we've been going and adding an extra element of stringency. That's the whole principle of kitnius to begin with, and so many other of these kinds of stringency. So this is just one example. So therefore, better to use a list for the issues with products that contain denatured alcohol. The beer, now, number 2. The beer halacha writes in the name of the Gra that one should be strict and not use non-kosher soap all year, based upon a principle called sicha kishtiya, that anointing yourself with a salve that is made from a non-kosher ingredient, according to the Vilna Gaon, is tantamount to consuming it, because you're benefiting from it in a way that is akin to drinking. Now, you have to know that the Gra is alone in this stringency. The Gemara specifically discusses this case, and the Baalei HaTosafot, the Tosfos commentary, says that this concept that we apply the stringencies of using an ointment and making that a tantamount to drinking something only applies to oil that is truma, specific kind of prohibition. And yet the Vilna Gaon expands that prohibition to other things as well. So according to the Vilna Gaon, you could not use dial soap. A bar of soap you could not use during the entire year, because dial soap is made from lard. I don't know what they have here. It's made from pig fat. It's made from lard. I don't know what they have here in Canada, but I can tell you that in the States there's something called the Armour Meatpacking Company. Everyone see the Armour hot dogs commercial? Anyone from the States ever watch the Armour? Fat kids, skinny kids, kids that climb on rocks, tough kids, sissy kids, even kids with chicken pox love hot dogs, Armour hot dogs. The dogs kids love to buy. Okay. Anyways, one of those things that stays stuck in your memory for the rest of your life. No matter how hard you try to remove it, it stays stuck. The jingle in the commercial. The Armour Meatpacking Company owns Dial Soap. Why does an meatpacking company own a soap company? The answer is because what do they do with all the extra fat from the animals? They manufacture soap out of it. So the Vilna Gaon would not allow you to use a standard bar of soap that you buy in the supermarket, because they take the lard, they solidify it, and just add fragrance to it, and that's what that's what cleans your body. It's a beautiful thing that you clean your body with a piece of fat, right? But that's what soap is, right? So we don't paskin like this Vilna Gaon. No one paskins like this Vilna Gaon. No one that I know. Maybe there are people, but we all use soap, bars of soap, to cleanse ourselves. So there are those who say that on Pesach, it's a very nice chumrah to have, to not use something that is made from chametz, even if it's going to just go on the outside of your body. So if a person wishes to be machmir this way, he has every right to be machmir. Remember, just because a person can be machmir doesn't mean that he's obligated to, and just because you don't have to be machmir doesn't mean it's usher to be machmir. You want to be machmir, be machmir. Number 3. Some are of the opinion that we do not say nifsal applies to an item that is initially produced as a non-food item. This is I actually have the source text if you want to be able to understand a little bit better. There's a tshuva from Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank who quotes from the sefer called Shoel Umeshu from the 19th century. And the Sholem Meshiv wrote that when you manufacture an item from chametz, where the initial intention was to manufacture it for a use that is non-food related, then just because it becomes inedible does not take away its chametz status from it. It's an unusual shita, and Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank proves that we don't paskin that way. And he proves it from the fact that there are many, many earlier poskim who talk about cigars that existed in the medieval period, that they used to soak the tips of the cigars in, what he says, they used to soak it in beer. They used to soak cigars in beer. And the Magen Avram says that you're not obligated to put that away for Pesach because it's rendered completely inedible, and therefore you're allowed to smoke those cigars, and you're allowed to put that tobacco in your pipe and smoke it, right? So that proves, says Reb Tzvi Pesach Frank, that this is not something that we paskin like. However, once again, there is such an opinion out there. A person wishes to be machmir, they can be machmir. Number 4, lipstick. This applies specifically to things that you're going to be putting in your mouth. Sometimes lipstick is often inadvertently ingested when eating food. If it contains chametz, it is halachically permissible to apply to the lips, since the lipstick is unfit for canine consumption. But then he says, nevertheless, most women prefer not to consume even a trace of anything prohibited. I don't know where he gets that idea from. Why? I mean, there's a lot of Rashi that you could put on this sentence. Is it women and not men? Like men don't mind consuming prohibited substances? Is it only women? Or does he mean to say that, and how does he know? Has he polled most women to know that this is how they feel about it? But anyway, I think what he means to be saying that it's a fair assumption to make that if you told a woman that your lipstick contains chametz, she would have an aversion to using it on Pesach. That's probably what he means to say. And therefore, the Pesach list provides you with lipsticks that are chametz free. Mouthwash and toothpaste contain sorbitol and other ingredients which may be derived from chametz. Also, let me just point out that every year you have to check the list, because many times manufacturers are constantly changing, even if the ingredients are exactly the same on the label from year to year, but the source of those ingredients and because you're dealing with huge manufacturing plants, they could have multiple different manufacturers that provide them with the ingredients to make these compounds. And therefore, some of the ingredients may be derived from chametz. Although la halacha, these items are permissible to use, since they are nifsal me'achilas kelev. Once again, a dog would not drink mouthwash, but many prefer, or toothpaste for that matter. Many prefer not to use them as they are taken orally. And therefore, there are plenty of Pesach, kosher Pesach mouthwash, if that's a word, that you can use. So, like for example, if you look in the COR guide, he tells us that all scope mouthwash is kosher Pesach. They checked all scope, and they verified that it's the alcohol that's used in scope is of the kind that does not come from a grain-based alcohol derivative. Oral-B rinses, Crest whitening, fresh mint rinse, and so forth. Toothpaste is very similar. All Colgate toothpaste, okay? Crest cavity protection gel and paste, Crest for kids, and Crest tartar protection. Those are the major brands. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you wanted to use some kind of exotic kind of toothpaste, maybe there are certain, I know that there are certain other toothpaste that some people use because they have sensitive gums and things like that. But you should look for a more comprehensive list or call COR and see if they have additional information that's not included in their guide. And finally, number 6, he says, historically it has been the custom to follow stringent opinions regarding Hilchas Pesach. In addition, it seems to have been a prevalent custom to restrict the use of items which may contain chametz, even when they are clearly nifsal me'achilas kelev. And basically, that's really a summation of all of the previous 5. It's not really a separate I wouldn't count that as a number 6. I would just say that that's the reason why, that even though me'ikar hadin, even though the letter of the law allows you to use all of these cosmetics, one should still refrain. Now you'll note the COR and the Star K are very, very similar in the way that they present this information. A slightly different approach is from the Chicago Rabbinical Council. So if you turn the page, on the other side of that same paper, The CRC, which is very much in line with the OU, it's basically got the same poskim, more or less, as the OU. It says all varieties, I'm looking at the section which says cosmetics and toiletries. All varieties of blush, body soap, conditioners, creams, and eyeshadow, eyeliner, face powder, foot powder, foundations, ink, lotions, mascara, nail polish, ointments, paint, shampoo, and stick deodorant. Now, one of these items on the list is not like the others. I don't know why he's including paint in cosmetics and toiletries. I don't know. It's Sarach Ian. I don't know. They need a Rashi for that. Is there face paints? Okay, face paints. Okay. Do you get that off with turpentine? Anyway, those things are permitted for use on Pesach regardless of the ingredients contained within them. So here you see a more liberal approach that the CRC has taken, is that these items are not put in your mouth. These items do not contain alcohol for the most part, I would say, and even if they do, they are in solid form. So for example, a stick deodorant can contain alcohol. There's no question about that. However, to go to that extent to derive the alcohol from that is such a laborious and multi-step process that it becomes a point of absurdity to say that that's something that could potentially be reconstituted into something that's drinkable. But then he goes on, the CRC guide, and says many liquid deodorants, hair mousse, hairsprays, perfumes, colognes, and shaving lotions contain denatured alcohol and therefore should not be used on Pesach unless they are listed as chametz free on a reliable list of Pesach products. And therefore, he says lipstick, mouthwash, and toothpaste which contain chametz should not be used. Okay. So, I guess the point of what I want to present to you is there are certain differences in nuance even within the kashrus agencies within North America. When all things are equal and you have the opportunity to buy something which is clearly cleared as not containing any chametz ingredients, I think that it's worthwhile. If you happen to be there on Yantif and you forgot to buy your spray deodorant that's kosher on the kosher LePesach list, and your choices are to smell for the rest of Yantiv or to apply deodorant that is not on the approved list, my recommendation, especially if you're coming to shul, where you're going to be coming to wish me a good Yantiv, is please apply the deodorant. And I think that's really what I'm trying to suggest is be sensible. Pesach is the worst possible holiday for those who have OCD. Rabbi Turchiner just gave a shir on halach and OCD at Shari Shemaim. He's going to probably end up giving it here as well. But it's so important to know when a person is being obsessive about halachic observance and when they're being reasonable and sensible about halachic observance. And if you come to the Seder and you're a mess because you've obsessed over the preparation, then you know you've overdone it. There's no two ways about it. I tell this to my wife as well. Every single year she gets nervous, and every single year I tell her, by the time it's the night of the Seder, will everything be done? We know it will be. We've done this for years. So what are you worried about? We'll take care of it. It'll get done. And if you have that kind of positive attitude, and that zelonora, right? It's not the end of the world. If we miss to get the can of whatever deodorant, well, I'll tell you right now. So when it comes to deodorants, so Arid XX antiperspirant, Irish Spring deodorant and antiperspirant, Lady Speed Stick, Old Spice, Secret, good, Secret is okay, Soft and Dry. So if you forgot and yet you have something that's not on this list, just use it. Just use it. And I would tell you, lipstick, I would understand. I think that it's worthwhile to be machmir with lipstick. I think it's worthwhile to be machmir with mouthwash. And I think it's worthwhile to be machmir with anything else that you place in your mouth, even if you're going to be spitting it out afterwards. Now, with all that being said, let me talk about medications for just a moment. Medications now occupy a different genre. And those are things, and when we talk about medications, we have to distinguish between supplements and vitamins on the one side, and medications that you need to preserve your health on the other side. When it comes to medications that have been prescribed for you, let's say blood pressure medication, medication for diabetes, medication for anemia, medication for a myriad of other health conditions that a person may have. Unless, even if you think that there may be some chametz in these items, you should not refrain from taking. You should take them regularly on Pesach. The only time that there may be an issue is if the medication that you're taking is not swallowed as a pill, but rather it's in an oral suspension. If it's in something that you drink that has a pleasant taste, even then, in most cases, you should take it. But it's worthwhile to find out if there's a substitute. But if there's no substitute and you need it for your health, you should take all medications that are necessary. And if you have a question, err on the side of your health. Don't err on the side of Pesach. Okay, it's very, very important. That's when it comes to medications. When it comes to supplements, such as vitamins and let's say calcium supplements and things like that. So then a person should strive their best to find something that's both kosher and kosher l'Pesach. I want to point out that I've noticed that a number of people in our community don't really take this particular area to be of concern. I know that some people just routinely will buy vitamins over the counter, even when there are kosher alternatives. And I don't think that's correct either, because these are things that are going to improve your health, but you can live without many of these dietary supplements. But there's a whole plethora of vitamins and food supplements that are available that are manufactured specifically with kosher ingredients. When you have those alternatives available to you, I don't know why you would just buy, I mean, it's obviously more convenient, but koshervitamins.com, I mean, they ship to Canada, for goodness sake. They've got multiple. Yeah, there's a place on Atkinson and Bathurst, there's a pharmacy there that carries the full line of Frida vitamins.
Yeah, so does Chabad pharmacy.
And the pharmacy at Chabad as well. So why would a person not take advantage of things that you're putting in your body that are free of those kinds of ingredients? When it comes to Pesach, even food supplements can be ingested as long as you swallow them, provided that they don't contain chametz mamash, real chametz. As long as they just contain kitnias, let's say, then there's absolutely no problem, because you're not really eating them, you're just swallowing them. So therefore, the stringency of kitnias doesn't apply to things that you're just swallowing in pill form. But again, as I say, I know people who take, the doctor says, okay, you need a calcium supplement, you need an iron supplement. So a very popular calcium supplement is from clams. From oysters or clams? Which one? Oysters, okay. But there's another popular calcium supplement that's made from calcium carbonate and from other kosher ingredients. So why would you take the thing from oysters if you can take the one that's from a kosher derivative? Why would you take the one that's from shark cartilage if you can take the one that's from a kosher derivative? Now, if a doctor tells you that you need to take an iron supplement, many of them are made from animal blood, because that's a really good source of iron. But there are many other sources of iron that will work with your body and give you that iron boost that are made from kosher ingredients. So therefore, you should try to seek those products out whenever they're available. But I have to emphasize, and this is where it's very important not to be machmir, that when it comes to medications that you need because of a serious health condition, like diabetes, so give me some examples, Dr. Fink or Dr. Jessup.
Angina, high blood pressure.
Thyroid, angina, high blood pressure. What?
Atrial fibrillation.
Those kinds of things. Those kinds of things, you don't even think twice. You just take them normally and regularly. Okay. Okay. Let's open up the floor. Anyone have any questions? Yes?
For sure, I can't quote him specifically, he said that nowadays, any tablet is made of stuff that, the binding agent is of no concern whatsoever, because all the manufacturers have gone to things that are not common stick by any means. That's what he told me.
Okay, I don't know.
Tablet. I'm talking about medications.
You're talking about medications.
Not vitamins.
Right, okay, right. There are a lot of vitamins, that have like a lot of stuff in them, Yes, please.
With toothpaste, you said all Colgate products are kosher, which is fine and great. However, we've got the kosher Pesach toothpaste. And there's a lot of people who will not touch the Colgate and only be machmir, like you're saying, with the kosher Pesach toothpaste. Why? Why?
Because that's what the Bubba did. That's tradition. Dun, dun, dun.
But is there
that's what it is.
something
It's
more to it?
tradition.
Is it more machmir to have a kosher Pesach?
I don't think so. There are so many stories. I'll tell you a story that my Rebbe from Yerushalayim once told me. Yosselo Weisberg, who taught me Mila in Yerushalayim, told me a story about a young man who for years was buying a certain kind of filbert nut that they use in Yerushalayim over Pesach. He was buying it for years from a certain Arab. It was Naki Michshash Shvius, Michshash Orla, it had no problems with it whatsoever, and it was of the finest quality. And then, the old Arab died, and he passed over his business to his son, who went to agricultural school and went to university and learned how to optimize the growth of these nuts. And lo and behold, he buys the batch of nuts from this fellow, and they were amazing. They were so much of a higher quality than what he was used to. So after years of buying these nuts, he says, "Tell me, what did you do to make what did you learn in university to make these nuts so much better?" He says, "Well, you got to boil them in lard in order to give them that higher fat content and that lustrous glow on the." So the point you've heard stories like this before. Everyone's heard stories like this. The point is that there are always people who are very, very machmir. There's a tradition in Mea Shearim today that they will not use water from the tap over the 7 days of Pesach. Why not? So why not use water from the tap? Because in the pre-state days, the Arabs contaminated the reservoirs right before Pesach by throwing loaves of bread because they wanted to stick it to the Jews. So that's why that it became the custom to set up a huge jerry can or whatever, a huge container of water before Pesach that would last for the all 7 days, so that you wouldn't have to take water from the tap. So people to this day said, that's my family's tradition, so that's what I'm going to continue doing. Listen, Hanach lahem li Yisrael. The Gemara says, leave Israel be. Im lav neviim heim b'nei neviim heim. If we're not prophets, we're the children of prophets. We're all holy people. Ki chol ha'edah kulam kedoshim. We're all holy people, so we have to respect each other's minhagim. There's some people, I don't get offended if someone says, I can't eat at your house because you do this. Okay, fine, that's your chumrah. I respect it. It's not something that I made abide by. Yes?
One more. I'm not quite sure what Metamucil is made out of. I know
it's made out of psyllium.
Okay, so it's not like bran or...
It's not made out of bran. It's made out of psyllium, which is a non-chametz product. But I don't know offhand whether all of the ingredients in Metamucil are certified. It is kosher. Okay, good.
But the sugar, the
Depends on the flavor or not.
Well, so you have
It's
to.
on the list.
If it's on the list, it's on the list.
How
Great.
about water bottles? Does it have to have a bee on it, the water bottles?
No, the water bottles do not. Yes.
How careful do we have to be with paper towels and paper napkins?
Paper towels and paper napkins are no problem. The only issue that some have pointed out over the years is paper plates. The very inexpensive paper plates sometimes have been stiffened by cornstarch. So therefore, they recommend not to get the real cheap paper plates with the ridges on the edges. Those are the only ones that you should avoid. But all other kinds of paper plates, the more expensive paper plates, are fine.
Even if you put hot on it?
And what's that?
Paper napkins,
Paper napkins, paper towels are all fine.
And you could put hot on the paper plate?
One second, let me just take one at a time, sorry.
Oh,
Sorry,
sorry.
go ahead, who's next?
Could it stay on the paper plate?
Yes.
But it says in the COR booklet, yes, it says that they're fine, the paper napkins and the paper towels. But they said that it's not, shouldn't be used with moist, like to wipe up something that's moist. It says that in the COR book.
Okay,
Not used.
I think it's fine. Yes,
Styrofoam plates.
styrofoam plates are fine, yes.
Use an ice.
Many times, that we don't intend this to happen, but a lot of times, the place where the ice is made sometimes becomes an extra storage for that extra leftover challah from Shabbos. And so once in a while you get a crumb coming out of the ice maker. At least that's what happens in my house, or it used to happen, until I objected strenuously. I didn't want breadcrumbs in my ice, but sometimes it happens. So you should turn off the freezer, clean it out, clean out the reservoir, and make new ice for Pesach. Yeah.
So the cologne I'm not going to use, should I put it with the chametz that I'm selling, or can I just put it in a drawer somewhere and what do you
Well,
do?
yeah, I mean, you should put it away. Most people have one cabinet or more that they seal off even in their washroom for Pesach, for stuff that I don't plan on using. I think that, look, as long as you're selling your chametz, you might as well include it in the sale. There's no harm in including it in the sale once you're putting it away and selling it. So I would recommend doing that. Yes.
Can I go back to the hot with the paper plates for a sec? So
Yeah.
are you allowed to put hot on paper plate?
Yeah, the only thing I would avoid is using the very cheap,
The cheap
the
ones, so the
cheap,
Chinese
the cheap ones.
Coated or
If they're like the Dixie paper plates or the what are they called? Chinette paper plates, those are fine. You don't have to worry at all.
or like the decorative ones.
The decorative ones are
patterns.
fine, right? It's only the really cheapy ones that they use sometimes to cornstarch, yeah.
Bottle b'shishim does not apply on Pesach, I assume?
On Pesach it doesn't, but before Pesach it does. So if
Oh, no,
they're-
I'm saying for Pesach, even b'shogeg b'meisev, it doesn't matter if there's a speck, that's it, for the whole.
On Pesach. So you have
On
to understand,
Pesach.
the distinction is before versus if there's a bittul before Pesach, so then you do have bittul b'shisha. But on Pesach, if chametz falls into your chicken soup, which you're cooking on Pesach, then no, you're right, it will not be bittul b'shisha.
If this chicken soup was prepared for Pesach and something occurred, or there's a potential problem.
So then you should ask a shayla. It's not such a common thing for that to happen, but if it does happen, you should ask a shayla. There have been situations where people have inadvertently used a product which they thought was kosher l'Pesach, and actually COR has pointed this out. There's two types of Unger's frozen gefilte fish, right? Did you see that in the email? One of them contains real chametz flour, and the other one contains matzah meal. And the stores, unfortunately, the guy who's putting out the goods in the freezer doesn't know the difference. You've got to carefully examine each and every loaf of gefilte fish you purchase. Just because it's in the kosher l'Pesach section does not guarantee that it's kosher l'Pesach.
The garlic
Okay.
cubes, they had it in the Pesach thing and didn't have any peel on it, the garlic cubes, the frozen garlic
Yes,
cubes.
it's on the side.
Yeah, I don't know. Now, there are some people who refrain from eating garlic on Pesach in general, but that's also a chumrah based upon the way that garlic was stored in the old country. But cloves of garlic, fresh cloves of garlic you can use on Pesach. Yes.
Do you need different things like brooms and garbage pails? Do you need to have separate Pesach ones for that?
No, you do not. You do not need separate brooms and garbage pails. The broom, it's worthwhile to clean it, because brooms, sometimes do accumulate stuff. But if you clean it and there's a crumb that's embedded somewhere where the sun never shines, then don't worry about it.
Oil.
It's not a problem.
Oil, if it has a cup K, like I mentioned about the sunflower oil, if it has a cup K, do you think it's okay to use, cup K?
Does it say Chaf KP on it?
Yes.
Yes, then it's fine. Yeah, Chaf K is a reliable kashrus agency. Safflower oil is a machlokus, whether it's considered kitnius or not. We recommend that it's fine. Yes.
Diet Coke?
Diet Coke. Diet Coke.
Good question.
Diet Coke that has the COR kitnius is fine.
We can use it.
Yes, you can use that, that's fine.
Really, you can use it that long?
Yes.
Shouldn't use it during.
What about marshmallow? Yes.
It said that marshmallow is not okay for Pesach, even if it says it's kosher for Pesach.
Well, wait.
Wait.
I don't, whenever you're ready to take over, you just come up here. You let me know. You okay? Can I continue? Is that okay? Marshmallow has to have a good hechsher. The problem is that on many stores have carried a certain kind of marshmallow under a rabbi's hechsher who's been dead for about 30 years. And that's the problem with the marshmallow. It's got nothing to do with kosher Pesach. It's got to do with the fact that it's treif. Okay, so you have to make sure that the marshmallow has a good hechsher. If it's an OU, if it's a COR, if it's a star K, a chav K, an OK, and it says it has a P, and it says kosher Pesach, so then there's no difference between a marshmallow or a jelly bean or anything else. You know? Yes.
I noticed the OU guide has instructions for kosher yakir and coffee maker. Are you aware of any pucks that we can use here to put in the Keurig before we kosher it? Is there any point?
Yeah, I'm a little bit perplexed by the OU's policy on the Keurig. It's a Keurig. The OU offers an opportunity to kosher a Keurig. I have to tell you, personally, I'm machmir when it comes to appliances that you use all year round. I recommend to have a different coffee maker for Pesach. Even a Keurig. And the reason why I feel that way is technically it's true. You can kosher any appliance. But our appliances, when we use them during the year, we're not mindful of the things that we expose these appliances to by way of chametz. And because we're not mindful of them during the rest of the year, we're dealing with hot appliances that get hot. I just think it's a good idea, especially because appliances today are so cheap. You can get a new microwave, you can get a new microwave you can get for $40 from Walmart. You can get a coffee maker for $20 from Walmart. You should have those separate. You should have those specifically set aside for Pesach. I think that's a proper thing to do, and I don't think it's an onerous requirement, right? I don't even think Keurig is a good coffee, to be honest with you. I think it's personally, I think it's like the emperor's clothes. I think it's just a gadget that people think is nice. But it tastes like dishwater to me, the Keurig. Yes, go ahead.
Speaking of dishwater, it says there that all dish soap, I'm assuming with a reliable hechsher, is kosher Pesach.
Yeah, does it say that in the COR guide?
Yes, because I know last year was Amal, but in the core guide, I just wanted to clarify that. And same with brown sugar, it says red packed brown sugar with a regular core.
Whatever they say is good, yeah, because basically what they're telling you is that they checked into the ingredients. Dishwashing liquid does not contain any chametz derivatives. There's no reason for it to. It's not an alcohol-based product, and so therefore it's fine as long as it has a proper hechsher on it. And it's probably the same thing with brown sugar. I guess one of the concerns with brown sugar is that it may have a kitnius derivative or starch in it. And if they've checked into it and they know that it doesn't this year, so then you're okay. And the only thing is you should check from year to year because sometimes things do change from year to year. What else? Yeah.
Have you ever heard of whether regular during the year or Pesach having a separate egg pot? I don't know if this is just something passed down in generations or if this is actually a kosher thing that I should be aware of.
Separate egg pots. What I do know is that many balabustas are machmir to boil not less than 3 eggs at a time.
Yes, that I didn't know about.
Are you familiar with that tradition?
I was just told I needed a separate pot for eggs, and I
It has
just
to
never
do
heard
with the
of that.
possibility you may find a blood spot, and you have 3 eggs, it's be more. You have enough mass to bake it bottled. So, but I've never heard of a separate egg pot. No, sorry, I haven't. That doesn't mean that it's not that someone doesn't know about it. I just never heard about it. I'm not.
Maybe it was just minhag.
Yes, please.
In the COR book, it doesn't seem to say what kind of hair mousse is kosher Pesach.
Okay. Let's take a look together. Okay. Who's got page 22 and 23? Hair care. Okay. They've got about 6 entries for Head and Shoulders. I wish
You
more,
and I don't have to worry
I wish
about
more
that.
people would use that. Pantene, it's all shampoo, you're right. I noticed they don't have that. One of the things that they say is hair mousse should not contain, if it does contain alcohol, then you can choose to be machmir if you want to. As I mentioned, you don't have to be machmir with hair mousse because it's not something that you're ingesting. You have every right to be lenient. You may would just want to, they may have a more extensive list online. You can go to the Corps, or you can send the Corps an email. They email passovercare@corps.ca.
I did send an email about it and they never answered.
All right. So you may want to give them a call. They do have a Passover hotline. Ask them about mousse. But as I mentioned, mousse is one of those things where a person has a right to be lenient. If you can't, especially if you can't find a substitute, you can't find an alternative, so just go ahead and use it.
Thank you.
Okay? Yes.
Any brief do's and don'ts concerning wine? You know, in terms of, like I know we're supposed to not get Muvushal, right?
That you're not supposed to get Muvushal?
Right.
Or, well, it depends. It depends who you're having at your Seder.
Right, okay.
Okay, so there is a preference to non-Muvushal wine for the Seder, provided that everyone in your Seder is Shomer Shabbos and is Jewish. But as you know, there are many opportunities that we have to influence many Jews in our lives. So it's a mitzvah to have someone who's not observant at your Seder. And if that's the case, then you should have Muvushal wine. Yeah. I also recommend a wine that has a low alcohol content because drinking 4 cups for most of us is well past our limit. I mean, at least for me it is. So, yeah.
Central vacuum, if the canister's in the garage and like it's not, do we still have to empty it out before Pesach or?
It's a good idea to empty it out, sure.
Does it have to be?
It's good to empty
it.
If you haven't done it in time,
It is a proper thing to empty it out. Is it really such a burdensome kind of thing? I don't know. You have to do it eventually, right?
Yeah. It's only 10 years of that.
I'm Marshall.
Okay, anyone else? All right, if anyone has any questions, you're welcome. Yes, go ahead.
A hot plate that you use during the year, can you just cover it in tinfoil to use, or do you need a?
Technically you can, but number one, you should clean it very well. And number two, double cover it with heavy duty foil. And then you can use it for Pesach.
How about like a urn, like you just only put hot water in it?
Yeah, like I said, I recommend when it comes to appliances, you should have a separate urn for Pesach. Okay? Anytime you have any other questions, just give me a ring.